On that note, Russia's President Vladimir Putin has arrived in Pyongyang. It's Mr. Putin's first trip to North Korea since 2000. The red carpet was rolled out in an official welcoming. Mr. Putin greeted by North Korean leader Kim Jong Un ahead of talks. And on this note, joining us live now is Asian Affairs commentator and the former US Marine Colonel Grant Newsham. Grant, good to see you this morning. Thanks for your time. So how significant is this trip from Putin?
Oh, it's very significant. This just isn't a meeting of convenience. This really locks in these supplies of missiles, ammunition, artillery shells, millions of them, 100,000s of missiles as well. And the Russians get in return, the North Koreans get in return missile technology, improving their intercontinental ballistic missile capability, nuclear technology for their submarines, satellite technology, which helps with targeting and surveillance. So this is very much a working relationship. It's mutually beneficial for both sides, and it's not defensive. It's part of a really a larger offensive move by the Russians, the North Koreans, and the Chinese, the Iranians. It's maybe loosely coordinated, but they are on the offensive.
So the West should be alarmed by all of that. It sounds like they should be.
They really should. For a long time, they just laughed off the threats from these kinds of regimes. And they thought they had the upper hand. They always would. But now you're seeing the North Korean support has kept the Russians going in Ukraine. It's all been done with Chinese approval. The Chinese are glad to have this sort of chaos going on. It's a huge distraction for the Americans, the Japanese, the South Koreans, which prevents them from paying attention to what the Chinese are doing elsewhere in Asia. Also, it distracts from the amount of resources you can apply to Ukraine. So this is very much a sort of a win-win for the Russians and the North Koreans and the Chinese. And as I said, they're on the...
Yeah, first time in 24 years. So why now, Grant? How much do you read into the timing of this?
Oh, they've have shown that they are, as I said, they're not restrained, they're not afraid, I would say, of the United States, certainly not the United Nations. And part of this deal with the Russians and North Korea is the North Koreans no longer have to fear UN sanctions. The Russians will make sure that nobody at the UN or elsewhere is going to apply effective sanctions on them. So we really need to be afraid, and this is or concerned enough to show some sense of urgency for once. But this all ties into events in the Middle East, Gaza, South China Sea, Taiwan, and it's part, as I say, it is part of a larger, loosely coordinated effort that, for the first time in really my memory, we have now got these regimes which see us weak, and they are pushing. And this is very much an effort to underpin each other and their respective efforts.